Unity and Family Ministry would like to thank everyone who has joined in to participate in this worthwhile activity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Reverend. And so without further ado, we're gonna start our program here. So I'm gonna share my screen. So welcome everyone to the Hurricane Preparedness Workshop. I am Salome Garcia, and we're gonna talk a little bit about climate change and the intersectionality with hurricane season. But before we get started, I'd love to just share a little bit about the Cleo Institute and who we are. So we at the Cleo Institute are a 501c3 nonprofit, nonpartisan organization, and we work to communicate and educate the community on the science, impacts, and solutions of the climate crisis. Some of our partners at the local, state, federal, and international level include the CDC, the World Health Organization, NASA, UNEP. So all of our information is based on 100% scientific information. We work on compiling all of the recent scientific data and making it accessible and easy for the community, which is why every single program that we do is founded on the scientific consensus. Just as a brief reminder, there is 97% consensus amongst scientists that not only is climate change happening, but it is extremely likely due to human activities. And what does this mean? This means our industrial activities. Every piece of our civilization, from our phone, from turning on the lights, our cars that we take to work, all of that raise the carbon dioxide in our atmosphere. This is, I think, the most important piece of information in all of the presentations that we do, because a lot of people talk about climate change and the impacts of climate change, and not very many people can effectively communicate. Recall back in grade school or in the 5th or 7th grade when we originally learned about the greenhouse gas effect. So just as a quick reminder, the greenhouse gas effect is a good thing. We like the greenhouse gas effect. The greenhouse gas effect is the simple transfer of energy. We get incoming energy from the sun, mostly in the form of light, and this energy is absorbed by our Earth and reflected back out of our atmosphere. In that outgoing process, this outgoing energy, mostly in the form of heat, gets trapped by greenhouse gases that form a blanketing effect around our Earth. So we like greenhouse gases and we like the greenhouse gas effect. Without the greenhouse gas effect, we would be living in a frozen ice cube. It's because of the greenhouse gas effect that we keep that perfect Goldilocks temperature inside of our Earth. The problem is that because that incoming energy is equal to the outgoing energy, we have too many greenhouse gases that is keeping too much heat trapped into our atmosphere. And because of that, the Earth is getting hotter. The last 5 years have been the hottest on record. And this also causes a warming in our oceans. Oceans have absorbed 93% of excess heat. Oxygen concentrations are declining. And because those ocean waters are warmer, that actually affects the strength of our hurricanes. So that's going to be important for later on in the presentation, but it's important to understand that the heat of our water is causing not only it to get warmer, but also causing ocean acidification. And this, of course, also impacts our sea level rise. This is actually a picture from where the Cleo Institute headquarters are located in Miami. We are expected that by 2050, 2 feet of sea level rise, and by 2100, as much as 8 to 10 feet of sea level rise, which is literally taller than I am. So 8 to 10 feet is a lot. And as I mentioned before, this extreme weather and warming of our oceans also impact our extreme weather events like hurricanes. Why? Because warmer weather adds more fuel to storms and hurricanes. It means heavier rain, higher storm surge, and more catastrophic winds. And that's exactly what happened in 2018 with Hurricane Michael. This is a before picture of Mexico Beach. And this is an after picture of Mexico Beach. As you can tell, a hurricane is not only water and storm, but it also brings with it extreme economic and financial devastation, as well as PTSD, mental health impacts. And so this is one of my favorite slides to kind of connect the dots between the climate crisis and hurricanes. This line in the center of the screen is a visual representation of the strength of hurricanes. As you can see here with the numbers 7 and 8, this is a tropical storm and a subtropical storm. As it gets closer to our coast, it comes into contact with warmer waters right here off the Gulf of Mexico. Those warmer waters were able to rapidly increase the strength of Hurricane Michael in less than 36 hours. And what happens when a hurricane jumps from a Category 1 to a Category 4 hurricane in less than 36 hours is that it doesn't provide the local municipal staff to be able to prepare for those kinds of catastrophic winds and storm surge. Hurricane Michael back in 2018, which I'm sure is a hurricane that all of you are familiar with, is the strongest recorded hurricane to make landfall in the Panhandle. And as many of you know, many people from the areas that were most devastated, like in Mexico Beach and Panama City, actually migrated to nearby cities like Pensacola and like Tallahassee, which is where I am. So we actually saw an influx of climate refugees, which is people that lost their homes and that had to relocate for jobs and for security. So a little bit about this upcoming hurricane season. Hurricane season already started. It actually started on June 1st and it's going through November 30th. And we know because of NOAA's predictions that the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season is actually expected to be stronger and above normal than the usual hurricane seasons that we can expect. So that's why we're here. We're here to talk about, we know all the doom and gloom. What can we do to actually prepare? And the first thing that we'd like to talk about is having a family communicated plan. What does that mean? Having a plan of action that includes you, your children, and not only your immediate family, but also the members of your family in your community that may have special needs. The elderly, young children, your pets. It's important to be able to communicate your plan of action with all of the members of your family and establish a family meeting place. In case you get separated, in case a storm hits and you just happen to be, one person's at work, the other person's at school. So if you happen to be in different places, it's important to know where you're going to be meeting. And it's especially important to know if you are to evacuate and you don't know your evacuation plan, at that point it's too late. You should know your evacuation plan before it's time to evacuate. So it's important that you know that information, that you communicate it with your family, and that you have a prepared list of phone numbers written down in a physical paper. Because as I'm sure you guys are probably just like me, we don't memorize phone numbers anymore. We have all of our phone numbers in our cell phones. But many times we don't have the ability to charge our cell phones if we're out traveling, if we have to evacuate, if our power goes out. So it's important to have a little black book with all of your with all of your phone numbers written style the 90s. We're taking a trip back to the 90s and having all of that in a little black book. Not only the numbers of your family members, but also emergency numbers. Mobile home residents need to evacuate regardless of whether they are in an inundation zone. So the second an evacuation order is issued, regardless of storm surge, mobile home residents, unfortunately, should evacuate, whether it be to a shelter or to another area that is out of the storm's immediate path. We always suggest to build a kit. Build it slowly, and we actually, right after this presentation, we have Maria Gaitan joining us for a financial literacy presentation that will further allow you to understand how to really create a robust plan. But we always suggest that you build your kit before an emergency appears. And this is not only for hurricanes, but for any emergency that can populate. Bottled water, we of course recommend reusable bottled water. There is no need to go out to the store and buy a bunch of individual bottles of water. Get your gallon of water, and you want 1 gallon per person per day for 3 days. So for me, that would be 3 gallons of water in my closet. If I live with one person, let's say I live with my sister and my mom, that's 3 people, so I would want 9 gallons of water. I'm bad at math. That makes sense. 9 gallons of water in my closet. You also want non-perishable food in case your power runs out and you don't have access to a refrigerator, a battery-operated NOAA weather radio, and we're actually going to talk a little bit more about what that means in a second. You want a battery-powered cell phone charger, or in this case, we're going to be providing solar-powered cell phone chargers, flashlights and batteries, a first aid kit, cash, any prescription medications that you or your family may need, and any supplementary items for your children, your pets, special needs. So again, this is a kit that you should always have in your closet before an emergency presents itself. And the last thing that we talk about when building your standard hurricane kit is food enough for 2 people for 3 to 5 days. And again, try to bulk up on non-perishable items, pasta sauce, beans, milk in a carton. By participating in this phone call, you actually also get a free hurricane kit complimentary of Unity in the Family Ministry and the Cleo Institute. And these are some of the things that you can expect in your kit. We are giving reusable masks, a solar lamp, a pack of organic cotton menstrual pads for the woman in the call, first aid kits, and an aluminum blanket. And we also have a solar radio giveaway. So we unfortunately don't have solar radios for everyone, but we do have solar radios for, I believe, about 20 people that answer some of the questions that we have at the end. And that solar radio is solar powered, and it's also crank powered. So you have, so you're sure to be able to stay up to date with news, even if your power goes out. It's also important to know the emergency and evacuation assistance programs. The EEAP provides amazing services. So you have to register and check your eligibility before an actual evacuation or emergency happens. And you can register for emergency and evacuation assistance 3 different ways. You can register online, you can mail in an application, or you can call 311. This program offers specialized transportations. It transports you to a shelter and also offers shelter information. It also offers medical monitoring and wellness checks. And by attending this program, you're also going to receive a digital emergency preparedness kit. Inside of that digital kit, we have compiled all of the Escambia County and Pensacola City, as well as nearby county emergency preparedness links and information. So you can go in your digital emergency preparedness kit and say, okay, well, I live in this area of Pensacola, and you'll find the links that are relevant to your area and the local resources that your municipalities have made accessible, and some other additional resources that local nonprofit organizations make available as well. Oh, you're also going to find all of this information. So if you want to register online or mail in an application to the Emergency and Evacuation Assistance Program, you'll find those links and where to register on this digital kit that you receive as well. It's really important to know your local evacuation shelters. So you can report issues and requests at any time, Pensacola 311, again, by phone, web, or mobile. It's important that you sign up for the emergency notifications with Escambia County. You sign up for emergency alerts. And again, we are going to provide a link on how to sign up for that after this call in your kit. We also have Travis from Escambia County's Emergency Management Department on the call. So if he wants to add anything at the end, maybe that I might have left out, he can do so. The service with Escambia County does provide support and a database of resources. So if you need clothing, if you need medical assistance, you can go to the Escambia County resources page. And you also have the phone number 211, which offers disaster relief services with the Red Cross and the National Shelter System. So this is just a preview or a little review of what you need to keep in mind when preparing for a hurricane. Number 1, review your emergency plan or set up your emergency plan. Make sure that you're checking your supplies and your hurricane kit. Make sure that you have an out-of-town contact, somebody that is out of the storm path that can check in with you or that you can check in with and that is able to offer you some help if you need so, or if you're not safe. It's important to also have copies of all of your important documents in a plastic bag, your passports, any insurance information, because unfortunately it is known that houses flood and insurance information gets lost. So it's important to know where your insurance information is and keep that safe. Know your evacuation route before it is time to evacuate, and follow the official instructions. And you do that by signing up for the official alerts in your municipality. And a few things about your evacuation plan. Number one, find out if you need to evacuate. And how do you find that out? By signing up for the local alerts and listening to your local officials. Plan and know your evacuation route. Leave when ordered to do so. The longer you wait after your evacuation order, the greater the chances are that you're going to be stuck in traffic, that it's going to be too late, that something's going to change with the storm path. So it's important to already have these things ready so that if you are told to evacuate, you are ready to evacuate right away. And it's very important to communicate your plan with someone, again, like we mentioned earlier, so that they can check in with you, or so that they know if you haven't gotten to your destination at an appropriate time. And of course, plan for your pets. There have been new updated FEMA regulations and grants that allow shelters to accept pets. So you don't have to stay in your home with your furry buddy. You can now take your furry buddy with you. So we talked a lot about doom and gloom, and kind of the dangers of hurricanes and what to do to prepare. And so the last piece of this presentation is going to talk about the climate crisis and some of the solutions. The climate crisis is here. We have felt the impacts, not only with Mexico Beach or with Katrina or with Andrew. For those of you that remember Andrew, these are all hurricanes that completely devastated the communities. In Puerto Rico, we dealt with Hurricane Maria as well. So we see the impacts of the climate crisis already, and there's two different types of solutions. There are solutions that mitigate, which addresses the causes of climate change. So when I say mitigation, I'm talking about lowering our greenhouse gas emissions. The second type of solution is adaptation, which addresses the impacts and reduces our vulnerability. So this hurricane preparedness workshop is an adaptation webinar on how can we make sure that we're addressing the impacts and making ourselves less vulnerable to climate change. And there are some solutions that do both, mitigation and adaptation. My favorite solution is to plant more trees. When you plant trees in your local community, you are providing your local community with a natural carbon sink. Trees naturally are able to absorb not only carbon dioxide, but other local air pollutants. So when you plant more trees, you're actually creating better air quality, you're absorbing carbon dioxide, but you're also creating an adaptation solution. Trees are actually known to help with flooding because the roots of trees are able to absorb water and help with storm surge. Trees can offer protection from wind, and also the canopy of the trees helps you better prepare for extreme heat. So you're able to provide shade from heat. We have a beautiful partnership with Drawdown, which is a book that we always highly recommend, and it's the most comprehensive book on solving the climate crisis. These are some of our favorite solutions that the book Drawdown points to, and this is mitigation at a personal level. The best thing that you can do in order to lower greenhouse gases in your community is to decrease food waste. That is the number one thing that we advocate. Of course, always having a plant-rich diet, composting, and greenhouse gases lower when we transition to solar and renewable energy. So rooftop solar and electric vehicles are other solutions that we love to talk about. Let's talk a little bit about food waste. Why is that at the top of our list? Well, if food waste was a country, it would be the third largest emitter of greenhouse gases. And actually, 40% of the food in the United States is thrown away. When you throw away food, whether you put a banana peel in the trash can and it goes to the dump, there's a chemical reaction that happens in dumps that creates methane. Methane is a greenhouse gas effect that is 25 times more potent in its heat trapping capacity than carbon dioxide. So methane is a terrible gas. We do not want to release methane into the atmosphere. So it makes a huge difference whether you put a banana peel in the garbage can or whether you put a banana peel in your composting bin. Food scraps and yard waste alone make up almost 30% of what we throw away. So composting keeps us out of landfills, and just by composting, you're able to do something really wonderful for your home as well as for your community. And we also talk a lot about having a plant-rich lifestyle. On the left-hand side of the screen, you can actually see by food, the food groups that are most responsible for greenhouse gases, and 56.6% of that is meat, and a close second place for dairy with 18.3%. So we love to encourage Meatless Mondays at the Cleo Institute just by replacing one meal. Go to Burger King, and rather than a red beefy burger, you can get the Impossible Burger, which ironically tastes almost the same. These vegan substitutes are really stepping up their game. A lot of the time you can't even tell the difference. You pay an extra 30, 50 cents, and you're making a big contribution just by replacing that one meal. And when talking about a plant-rich lifestyle at the Cleo Institute, we always say we don't need a handful of perfect environmentalists or perfect vegans. What we need is millions of imperfect environmentalists taking tiny steps in the right direction. So never feel discouraged by just replacing one meal, whether it's rather than eating beef, you eat a fish. Rather than eating a fish, you eat some tofu. Those can make huge contributions. And of course, we are in Florida, so we'd love to talk about solar. Solar energy is an essential part of addressing the climate crisis, and we refer to our partner, the Solar United Neighbors, on how to put rooftop solar. You actually don't need to be a homeowner. You don't even need to be in a house. There are programs being incorporated all the time with Gulf Power, with Duke, and with several other energy providers in the Escambia County area where you can opt into community solar programs. So make sure that you're checking out Solar United Neighbors and the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy for more information on how to go solar. This is our last slide, and it's just reminding you that you have so much power. There is power in community building and community education, and we at the Cleo Institute know that you as an individual have 3 superpowers minimum: the power of your voice, the power of your wallet, and the power of your vote. When you talk about the climate crisis, when you talk about preparing for hurricanes, when you're increasing your civic engagement beyond just being a political Facebook activist, when you stay responsibly involved, you're using your superpowers to create meaningful change in your community. And of course, using your wallet by consuming sustainably, supporting climate conscious organizations and businesses. These are only 3 of the many superpowers that you have. So thank you so much for attending and giving us the superpower of your time by jumping on this call for about an hour and talking to us about this. And that is the end of my presentation. So thank you so much, everyone. I am seeing some stuff in the chat. So thank you so much, Travis. And thank you, Emma, as well. She's adding some additional information on composting. And now I'm going to throw it over to Maria Gaitan, who's going to give us a financial literacy presentation.
Well, thank you, Salome, for having me tonight. It's a pleasure. You always inspire me. Every time I come to one of these seminars or webinars, I leave inspired. You guys do a great job, and I think the message that you're sending, to those out there listening today, it's fantastic. My name is Maria Gaitan, and I work for Consolidated Credit. We are also a nonprofit agency, and our goal is to, help individuals throughout the country to be financially stable and to prosper. So the question is, somebody asked me today, so why, talk about personal finances when a storm is coming? Well, and the reality is that what happens is not only your home, your house can be affected, but also your finances. And also, like the saying goes, if you fail to plan, it's almost like you're planning to fail. And in this situation, there is, really no room for taking a chance and not being prepared. So let me go ahead and move on to the next one. Next slide. Um, some of the reasons that we want to talk about is not only for you individually, but also for you to understand the entire the community, and how a disaster can affect everyone, whether we like it or not. Some of the reasons why our finances are affected is because maybe your job is we lose electricity and you cannot go to work. You can also some of the other general reasons that we are affected is because businesses in general lose revenue, and in our state, tourism is extremely vulnerable and affected when there is a storm. I mean, hotels close, those in the uh, the hotel industry or restaurant entertainment, they if the places are not open, their finances are going to be affected. Now, what happens though is that it depends on what type of work you do. Actually, also it's important to know that some jobs, some individuals actually are going to be busier, and this is kind of like the irony of it, based on the industry that you work in. For example, if you're in construction, right after a hurricane, there's a lot of work for you. Handyman, fixing homes, tree removal, yard work. So, it depends really on what kind of, what type of, work that you do. Anyway, so some of the consequences of this, being unemployed and losses in business revenue and so forth, it affects us in a way that, directly, where our credit card debt goes up substantially. From our experience here at Consolidated, after a storm, people, rack up to, from anywhere from $700 to $1,000 in their credit card debt. And then, of course, a lot of times then the rent and the mortgage payments are delayed, are behind. So, there's, hold on a second, let me hear, I'm sorry. Some of the other ways that your personal finances can be affected is because of cleanup costs. For example, we had a hurricane a couple of years ago, and I had 2 trees in the front of my house that fell. One was, across the street, so I had to pay someone right away to remove it. Another thing that happens is that when something like a hurricane happens or a storm, a lot of bad folks come out and, they scam you. I heard so many stories of people that pay a handyman or a contractor to fix their roof. They gave a deposit and they never saw the work done. Insurance related costs. For example, when let's say you have you lose the roof and you have to, pay deductible. Those are things that you did not have really in your plan, your monthly budget. A lot of times you have to leave the area and you have to go and stay in a hotel and, buy food, but, eat out, and other, incidentals. So where do we start? One of the things that we always talk about is organize your finances and update your information. What I mean by that is, find yourself one of those boxes, if you can, that are waterproof or fireproof, and they have a lock. If you're able to do that. If not, just a really good sturdy, bag, and put all your important papers, your insurance papers, your car registration or your title, your children's school information, birth certificates, um, you name it. So that's important. Then make sure that you have insurance, that you have your insurance paper, and make sure what it is that they cover, and where to call in case you do need to have some work done, and collect money from the insurance company. Flood proof your home. What we mean by that is, of course, if you have hurricane windows, well, great. But if not, then you have to put some shutters, and if there is a chance that there will be flood, sometimes you have to put those sandbags around. Like Salome said, plan for your pets. Now, conduct a household inventory. This is super important, and we recommend that you take pictures, actually. Take pictures of your living room, your kitchen, your appliances, your bedroom. So, God forbid, if you have to, go to the insurance company, then you have something like, you can show them the before and the after. Emergency cash available and cash in hand. A lot of times, because the electricity goes away, ATMs don't work. So make sure that you have some cash. And we always recommend that you don't have super large bills like 50s, because, or anything higher, because, a lot of times you're going to be in a situation where, like a $5 bill would do you much better than a $50 bill, because the person that you're doing business with, they may not have change. Like Solomon said, also, make sure that you have a contact from out of town. Now, what I like to talk about is the major key to financial preparedness. What is that? It's a budget. Now, we hear all the time, gosh, we hate to budget. I don't want to even hear about a budget. But and people think that a budget is really restrictive, but in reality, a budget is freeing, and I'm going to show you how. First of all, I consider a budget a tool for planning. Of course, for your future, for your goals, and whatever you wish to have down the road. But then also, budgeting to plan for what is going to happen today, what is going to happen tomorrow, and in this case, what's going to happen in case of a hurricane or some kind of a weather event. So the first thing to do to put together a budget, and before I continue, you can actually now use those budget apps on your phone or your computer for free. There's a number of them, but you know what? It's real simple. If you don't want to even go there, you can do it my way and get a piece of paper and a pen and just write up all your income. What money is coming in from your job, from any part-time job, if you have child support or Social Security. Then also go ahead and add your expenses, and you have to add, what you're paying for rent or mortgage, your car payment, your insurance, whatever you pay every month for prescriptions. Those are the fixed expenses. Those are the ones that you just cannot change, from one month to another. Then you have your flexible expenses. These are expenses that you have a little bit of control over, like groceries, gas, utilities, things like that. And of course, you have your discretionary expenses. And, when a hurricane's coming, you're not going to be going to the movies, to the restaurant, or maybe not even to a beauty salon. So those are things that actually, when we have to make decisions, those things that you don't have to do. So we do the math. You have, let's just for practical purposes, let's assume that you're making let's say $2,000 a month, okay? And then you're spending $1,500 a month. So you have a difference of 500, and that positive, that is money that you have not committed, that you have not spent. So we call that to be in the black, that you are in a positive position. Now, if you were in the opposite, where you make $2,000, but you spend, let's say, $3,000 a month, you're gonna be in the red, or in other words, what we call it upside down. So then, what happens? There's a moment where we have to stop and figure out, if you're upside down, what are your priorities? What are the things that you can, take out of your budget, things that you can do without, and then prioritize. Think about how, taking control of your budget will affect you in the future in a real positive way. Sample budget here again. You have one sample on the one side, income total of let's say $525, and the total expenses are $960. So this person is upside down what? $435. Now what they did is they divided that amount by 30 to figure out how much they were upside down every day. And that is $14.50. When you look at it that way, you may, for example, in order not to be upside down, you may, let's say, stop, not go to Starbucks and get that coffee and that nice pastry, and you spend, $7. So you go out to lunch and you spend $15, $20. So having a budget kind of gives you a way to gauge what you're doing every day and how to modify your activities. Now, what I recommend always, to be successful in creating a budget is to include your whole family. There's there's nothing good coming out of one person, let's say the father or the mom or the grandma, doing the budget on their own, and everybody else not having an idea of what's needed and what's going on. So, one of the things in this case that we're talking about, hurricane preparedness, a goal, could, when you do the budget, one of the goals could be, to save up some money for an emergency fund. God forbid the hurricane does come, have that extra money that you can pay for the groceries, that extra groceries that you're gonna buy at the store, because you're gonna run over there and buy all these canned goods and all these things that Salome talked about. You're gonna be buying batteries, you're gonna be buying water, etc. So, that would be a really great goal to have at this time in the year. But it also, budgeting, it could be, for some really nice goals, long-term goals, like maybe buy a new car, buy a house, or take a trip, or, plan for retirement. So, and one of the things that we always really emphasize when we're putting together a budget with someone is that I don't care what it is, some of this money should be put aside for savings. And, we talked about saving for an emergency fund, saving for the future. But in reality, it doesn't have to be a lot. We can start. I mean, I started, I was a single mom, and I did not have a lot of money for a long time. But I put, $5, $10 a paycheck, little by little. Before you know it, you ignore it. It's not even in front of you. You forget about it. And before you know it, it grows. And it's a really great thing for your family. Now, we have certified counselors that are here to help you talk about your finances. If you have any issues, or if you would like some help in putting together a budget, the number to call is here on the screen. Is 844-484-3231. Or you can ask your questions. You can email us at fined@consolidatedcredit.org. Okay. Thank you, Salome, for having me.
Thank you so much, Maria. I really enjoyed that. And so we're going to now transition to a few questions. And also remember that for those of you that joined us, welcome. And as a thank you for attending our webinar and to help the community better prepare, you, for attending the webinar, get 2 hurricane preparedness kits. You get a physical kit with a solar power charging station, a first aid kit, and a few other of those items. We'll talk a little bit about how to get that physical kit in a second. And then you also get a digital resource kit. Within the pages of that digital resource kit that you will get via email, you will find Maria and Consolidated Credit Solutions information, as well as the Cleo Institute information. So you can, of course, reach out to us for any questions. And so moving on towards some questions, I see Lloyd asked a question in the Q&A. How effective are cloud storage services for storing important documents? Is it wise to back up digital personal documents that way? Maria, do you want to answer that question?
I think, okay, so I came, how can I say this? I came into the 21st century by force, okay? My coworkers and my children made me do it, but I am so happy because having your, and frankly, I don't understand how it all works, okay? But the truth is that having your documents in the cloud, it's a safe storage and it's a place that where you can actually go later on and retrieve that information. So you don't have to have it again in that box that I was talking about. If you are able to scan that information and put it up in the cloud, good for you. But there's things like your passport, your driver's license, you know, things that you do have to have with you. And I still, you know, I recommend that you do.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's important if you are going to keep it in the cloud. I think that better safe than sorry. I think the cloud is an amazing storage service. Make sure that you are using the proper safety precautions. But I also think that it's very important that you have physical copies, because you never know if you're not going to have access to an electronic device because of whatever may happen. So you always want to give yourself that option, that safety option of having physical copies as well. And there's just some things that you need physical, like Maria said, like your passport, your ID, cash. Is solar really cost effective? By Timothy. Thank you so much for that question, Timothy. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. So unfortunately, it's not as effective as it could be. We still have a lot of work to do in order to make solar accessible to every person in the state of Florida and around the country. But it is becoming a lot more accessible and effective. If you want to clarify your question, I'll also read the clarification. I'm not exactly sure what you mean by effective, but it is cost effective if you do it the right way. So for those of you that are in Gulf Power territory, if you weren't aware, Gulf Power has recently been acquisitioned by FPL, and FPL does have one of the largest low-income community solar programs in the country. And what those community solar programs mean is that you don't need to own a house. You don't even need to live in a house. Renters and apartment complexes are able to opt into those community solar programs. At this point, Gulf Power does not currently have a community solar plan, but the rumor mill has it that they are going to release a community solar plan, which basically means that you can opt into having your power be from solar energy, and then you do actually end up getting tax benefits from that after a few years of opting into the program. There's other ways to go solar, which is not just your power, but it's also by the way that you charge your phones, the way that you like if you have generators in your house, you can do those solar. So basically the question is the same for all solar. It does take an initial investment. However, long term, it is definitely cost effective. Whether you're talking about a few solar panels for your phone or whether you're talking about a solar farm for your house, that's really the basis of it, is like, are you able to make that initial investment? And even if you're not able to make that initial investment, say like, oh, well, I don't have, $500 now. I need to be as cost effective short term as possible. There are nonprofit organizations that help provide low income and moderate income households with that initial investment capital, 0% loans, or very small interest rate loans. And the best resource that I will recommend is the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy and Solar United Neighbors. You're going to find all of the best information on how low and moderate income families can go solar in the best way possible. Terry asks, how much cash should a family of 3 have on hand for an emergency? I've heard of, I heard to have low bills, but should it be to cover major bills? Please explain a little bit more.
Well, you want me to take that? When I say to have cash on hand, and we can talk about two different, we're talking about, I'm thinking of two different things. Cash on hand, the moment that a hurricane is coming is, cash on hand to pay for food as you are on the road, as you may need, to put gas or buy some incidentals as you're, away from your home. But cash on hand, as far as savings is concerned, and this is something to work towards when you're doing your budget. Ideally, we recommend that you have 3 to 6 months on savings, 3 to 6 months to cover your expenses for 3 to 6 months in your savings. That's what that we mean by cash in hand. But if it's for emergency, when you're leaving your house, you're evacuating, well, I would think that you would consider how much people, how many people are with you. If you have 3 kids, 5 kids, if you have someone that may have different special needs that you need to pay for. So it depends on your particular situation. But I would just, whatever you think that you need, you might multiply it by 2, because usually things, unfortunately, when an emergency happens, a lot of the things that we commonly purchase, they go up, because of, the high demand.
Thank you, Maria. And I also encourage anybody that is wondering, am I financially prepared, or how do I financially prepare, especially in the age of coronavirus when there is so much financial uncertainty. I definitely encourage you to reach out to Consolidated Credit Solutions. They do have, as Maria mentioned, guidance completely free of charge. So at the very least, you're able to kind of take a hold of your finances a little more. And we only have 4 minutes left, so I'm actually going to turn it back over to Reverend Calvin Avant. Reverend, can you explain to our participants how they can get their physical emergency preparedness kit?
Sure. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for participating. And I think we ought to take just a few seconds and let Travis Tompkins speak, if we could, before I give them the pickup, because he's a part of our emergency management team here in Escambia County.
You're absolutely right about that, and I completely forgot. Travis, I actually have just promoted you to a panelist. That took a little bit. So hi, Travis, you are now a panelist, so you are able to unmute yourself and talk to the participants.
Unmute yourself on the top right-hand corner. What is that? The mute or unmute? There you go.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, well, first off, thank you. Just real quick, thank you so much, Cleo Institute. Thank you, Unity and Family, Dr. Avant and Pastor Greer, just the leadership that you provide here in Escambia County. Just a few resources that just to make everyone in Escambia County aware of. First and foremost, myescambia.com. Currently, we're running an ad campaign for Know Your Zone, Know Your Home, and Know Your Plan. And that is front and center and foremost on the first page. You can click that. That takes you directly to the emergency management site, which gives you a ton of information for hurricane preparedness, along with a lot of other disaster preparedness, not just hurricanes. We also, Escambia County Emergency Management also provides emergency guides. It's a pamphlet that we provide to anyone in the community for free. You can also request those from the website. You can also sign up for Alert Escambia on that page that will notify you of any alerts that we put out. Please always make sure that that during a storm that you're checking, if you're on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, any of those medias, the WAR, WKRG, any of the local news stations, we try to put out as much information in as many different media outlets as possible to get that information out. One thing that I really want to hit on too, just real quick, is sheltering. Please remember that hurricane shelters are available, but we want you to make a plan if you can to avoid having to go into a hurricane shelter, especially during this time of COVID-19. We are planning for 60 square feet per person per shelter. But please just remember that COVID-19 adds a total different dimension to sheltering this hurricane season, and we want everybody to be safe, and the safest way to do that is to make that plan, to make sure that if you can stay with friends in a hardened shelter, and sometimes in some cases it's you just have to evacuate tens of miles out of an evacuation zone instead of 100 miles. And speaking of evacuation zones, we have the myescambia.com/knowyourzone. You can type in your address there, and that will tell you whether or not you're in an evacuation zone. There's a lot of resources on that myescambia.com page, and I just hope and encourage everyone to check that out. And if emergency management also gives presentations here locally. We do that for churches, civic organizations, businesses, anyone that requests our services. We give hurricane preparedness seminars as well. But thank you, Cleo Institute, this was a great presentation. You put some great information out.
Thank you so much, Travis. I'm really glad that you're able to join us and provide that information. I'm definitely going to add that to my notes, and I'm going to make sure that we include that information as well in the digital resource kit that we distribute after the call.
Again, I'd like to also thank you, Travis. That was a great added information to what we've already received. I want to let everybody know, also inside of your Hurricane Preparedness Kit, you will find a folder. And in that folder, you're going to have some of the information that was presented here in the workshop. We have a disaster preparedness sheet, or it's the tips that you need to follow, other supplies that you could add to your kit, or what we usually call the kit a bug out bag, and a family disaster plan, one that you can actually fill out, and put those things on that they were saying, those phone numbers of everyone, all of the people who are disabled or have other issues that you need to address, your pets, those phone numbers for people outside of the area will all be on that particular form. Also, what to do when you return home, because many times if you evacuate and you come back, and people have gotten hurt or even killed because they didn't understand that there's certain things that they need to be prepared for when they return home. And we'll also have from the National Institute of Environmental Health Science some small booklets on what to do in case of a flood, what to do in case if mold is in the home, and what to do in case of a hurricane. In order to pick up your Hurricane Preparedness Kit, we will be in our office at 615 North W Street, that's Unity in the Family Ministry, on the second floor on Saturday, this coming Saturday, on the 27th, from 12 until 3 p.m. If you have a problem with that time and picking your kit up, you can give me a call at 850-748-0675. That number is on that email that you received from me also. And again, we'd like to thank the Cleo Institute for inviting us and to be a part of this much needed information. And again, to all the participants, thank you, thank you, thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for coming. That information, Reverend Calvin Avon's phone number and the address will also be in your follow-up email. So stay tuned and we will send you that over tomorrow. And thank you, Maria. Thank you, Travis. And everybody enjoy the rest of your Thursday afternoon.
Well, thank you for having me. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.